Why hello there, and welcome to another tank review. I'm Corny Swiss, and today we're looking at the M24 Chaffee, a rank 3, 3.7 battle rating American light tank. Now, as with all reviews, all the various parts of this review are timestamped down below, so feel free to click whatever in particular you want to watch if you don't want to see all of it, and go on your merry way. And before we jump into the garage portion, I'd like to say this skin I'm using for the Chaffee is brought to us by Watando, and I'll put the link to the specific post in the description. So, with all that being said, let's get into the garage portion of this review. So, the Chaffee, like I said, is rank 3, 3.7 battle rating, and it follows along the same thread of the Stuarts. It was actually designed to replace the Stuarts because they lacked that punch. They had the 37mm gun that just really wasn't effective. So American designers were trying to figure out how to get a 75mm gun onto a tank chassis that was quick, and the goal was for designers to keep it under 20 tons. And you can see that they did succeed at that. This tank is 18.4 tons, which is pretty good. 269 horsepower at 3,199 RPM. That's pretty good. So the power to weight ratio is solid. The tank's not that heavy, and it has a 56 km/h top speed. And you will do that 56 km/h top speed. This thing does accelerate fairly quickly forward and reverse, which is important when you get down to kind of popping out, firing, and popping back. Because the armor on this thing isn't great, but it's okay for its tier. But if you see competition from higher tiers, it's really going to struggle. And historically, the Chaffee wasn't really equipped to deal with a lot of the frontline German tanks like Panthers, Tigers. It was really going to struggle, but it at least gave crews a fighting chance, whereas the Stuart didn't really. So it was well received, and when it was used in Korea, it ran into T-34-85s, which it struggled against, but in the latter part of the war, it was used as a support tank for Shermans, Pershings, and things like that, and it did pretty well. That was kind of its niche. That was its role. So that's kind of how you want to play it in the game. It's actually fairly well represented, in my opinion. Maximum inclination, 41 degrees. Turret rotation speed, 24 degrees a second. That's common for Shermans, and this tank is no exception. That's a pretty quick turret, which is good on a light tank that wants to be popping in and out, agile, dogfighting, circling enemies, things like that. 10 degrees of gun depression, 15 degrees of elevation. Depression is standard. 10 degrees is fairly standard for American tanks. 15 degrees is a little light on the elevation, but elevation I think means a lot less than depression. So we're doing okay. I'll give up the 5 degrees of gun elevation, if I need to. So let's talk about the armor. The armor is kind of interesting. The hull is 25, 25, and 19 front, side, and back, respectively. Turret is 38, 25, and 25 front, side, back, and respectively. So, but when you look at the model, all right, you'll notice that, okay, yeah, this front plate is 25.4 millimeters. It is sloped at 59 degrees, though, so it's effectively over 40 millimeters. And that's kind of important. It's not great, and from the front, it's unlikely you'll bounce a shell, but when you angle it a little bit, like let's say you're coming around a corner like this, the extreme edges, except for right here on this machine gun port, is almost 50 millimeters, which is actually respectable. It's not great, but it's respectable. And the lower plate is, 60 or so, which is pretty good. The side of the tank, even though it's 25.4 millimeters, is now over 60 as well. And the rear of the tank is actually only 12.7 millimeters on the side, so that's kind of an issue, but most of the time people won't shoot that. Most of the time they'll shoot here, but if a Chaffee is angled at you, you could consider shooting here if you want an engine fire. However, it's more often than not better to try your luck on this seam here than try and knock the tank out, than maybe potentially miss the entire engine block. The turret from the front, 38.1 millimeters, sorry, and that's kind of as advertised, and it is sloped and kind of weird. So there are places that are in excess of 50 millimeters. There are places that are, as advertised, about 38 millimeters. You have to the side of the gun, you also have 38.1 millimeters, which is weird and sloped and angled, and that's roughly over 50 millimeters. which is cool. And it's actually overlaps a little bit with the gun mantlet, so there are seams right here that are much, much thicker. Side of the turret, you know, it's 25.4 millimeters, but from the front it slopes so hard that that's really not going to be where you want to shoot. But the moral of that story is the turret armor, thanks to this mantlet and the armor here, isn't that bad. It's certainly not going to stand up to some of the German guns if they hit it really square. But if you're a weird target and you're moving a lot, it's very easy to get bounces. And actually, this whole tank is honestly fairly well, okay. It's difficult to pin down because it is quick in both forward and reverse. So you're going to find people miss or hit you very poorly just due to the fact that you're moving so much. Because this thing does have a very quick acceleration forward and backwards. Alright. Side armor, like I said, 25.4 millimeters, 12.7 in the back, so that's pretty bad. 25.4 on the side of the turret, but usually in a tank, if you get hit in the side of the turret, you're kind of toast, and this is the same. So the side armor, like armor directly from the side, is pretty weak, and the rear armor, you know, 19 millimeters there, 25.4 there. You have this weird sort of rolled up bit here, which actually means your gun depression is going to suffer from the back. You spin the turret all the way around, like looking this way, you're not going to have as much gun depression, which is annoying. But, you know, that being said, from the front, this tank's armor is not good, but it's okay. And I think that's the key thing, is that at medium ranges, your gun will penetrate them, and you might get a bounce if you're angled from a lot of guns. And especially if you're moving, like you fire and then you immediately back up, you're likely to, one, maybe avoid the shell completely, or two, get hit maybe in the extreme parts of your tank where even if they penetrate, they're going to do 0 damage anyway. So I mentioned the gun. Let's talk more about the gun. Flash up this. The 75mm M6 cannon holds, when you have 48 rounds of ammunition, and it's basically the same. It's very similar. It's actually ballistically the same as the M3 cannon on the Shermans, but it is a lighter variant. It has a different recoil mechanism and things like that to cut down weight to keep the tank much lighter. So you have the same ammunition choices. M72 shot is what you start out with. It's good enough. It's decent. 88mm penetration at 10 meters, 76 at 500, 50 at 1500, and 42 at 2000. This will penetrate German tanks fairly easily. Russian tanks, maybe it'll struggle, but at close range it'll deal with them, because the Russian tanks live on the whole angled business, and it's actually the front of a T-34 can be fairly difficult, but you can get it done. That's the key thing. 619 meters per second muzzle velocity, kind of slow, but you know, it's not the end of the world. 6.3 kilograms. It's a decent sized shell. You have the HE shell, which I've never fired from this gun, mainly because 75mm HE shell just doesn't appeal to me that much. And it's just, I don't think it's that great of a shell anyway, so you know, I would just fire this M72 shot until you can get the M61 shot, and then fire the M61 shot all day long. Alright, the M61 shot is a classic APC-BC shell where its damaging effect is that it explodes inside the tank, which is really nice. And it's the same shell you get on all the Shermans, and it's easily, it's one of the best shells you get at the 3.7 battle rating and below. 93mm of penetration at 10 meters, 85 at 500, 61 at 1500, and 47 at 2000. So again, it penetrates every German tank it sees, and most Russian tanks will be dealt with fairly easily. At close range, you can penetrate every Russian tank effectively. At medium range, you might get the occasional bounce. At long range, it might be difficult. But their guns, alternatively, are going to struggle to penetrate you at those ranges as well. So the M61 shot is what you want. It has the same characteristics in terms of weight and muzzle velocity, and it's just a very solid shell and will deal with targets effectively. And I think you'll see it in the replays where if you place this shell well, it will just knock the tank out, whereas the M72 shot may not have. So this is really what you want. It's the same thing you have on the Shermans. and it's a really good shell on the Sherman, so don't worry, it's a really good shell on the Chaffee as well. And reloading rate 8.7 seconds. My crews aren't that good on on these tanks, but it does have a slower reload than say the M4A1, which I have down to 6.3 seconds. But it is a much smaller tank. It is more difficult to load. So that being said, its rate of fire isn't that good, but the gun is very potent and your tank is really fast, so you'll be able to back up and move really easily to avoid incoming shots. But let's look at the layout. Pull up the layout, and you have the transmission in the front, you have the driver sitting to the right, you have the machine gunner sitting to the left, and this tank doesn't have a machine gun, which is kind of sad. Gunner standing on the right, loader on the left. That usually means if you want to knock this thing out in one go, you really want to shoot it in its upper plate, right, just dead center almost, or down one of these crew files here, because the ammunition is actually stored in the back below the turret ring here. There's actually no ammo in the turret, which is kind of nice, but it does mean if you penetrate the hull in the front, you will hit ammo at some point. All right, so it's important to have this hull angled if you can to avoid that. You do have ammo down between the loader and the gunner, but you know that doesn't really matter. Most of the time, if you hit the ammo, you're gonna hit this ammo back here. That's kind of in a semicircle behind it. And also, if you send a shell through here, it's likely to hit the engine, which will set this thing on fire. There's a radiator in front of it, fuel tanks on either side. So shooting from, let's say he's angled like this, and you can sneak a shot right here, you will set it on fire. However, it might still be better to shoot the upper plate, because angled it's about 50-something millimeters, which you can penetrate with other guns, but it'll be a little more difficult, and if he moves at all, it's likely to cause some problems. I would still probably shoot in the upper glacis, or maybe aim for like the lower part of the turret ring type area, or the seam right here. Because if you can send a shell right through here, right through where the driver's sitting, it's going to hit ammo on the way out, and it's likely to hit the loader as well. And if the shell explodes in here, it'll toast everybody. So, in terms of layout, the upper glacis is really where you want to shoot this thing. It's just there's no ammo in the turret, so if you're going to shoot the side of the turret, you should shoot the front part, because that's where the crew are. The back, it's just the radio, and radio doesn't mean anything really. So I would shoot the front half of the turret. And if you have the whole side of the tank, I'd probably shoot it right through these shovels and stuff, because that's where the ammo is. And if you can hit that, you're likely to hit the gunner and loader as well. So that's where you should shoot this thing. In terms of, I guess in terms of like an overview of everything I've just sort of thrown at you, it has a really potent gun, and the armor is, it's not good, but it's not bad, because you can actually make it work. And if you're you have to be kind of clever with it, and if you are, you can actually really cause issues for enemies trying to shoot at this thing. But your biggest protection is your speed. All right, your ability to move forward and in reverse very quickly, and kind of get around tanks and use slower turret traverse and their slower turret traverse against them, whereas your turret will turn really quickly. So that's kind of what you need to be looking at with this tank. And I think the replays will show that. So let's move on to the replays, shall we? So here we are in a simulator battle with the M24 Chaffee. And in this battle, it's a single cap, it's conquest mode. So I'm going to try and use the Chaffee's speed to get there quickly. And like I've already said, the thing I really like about the Chaffee is that you get a fairly powerful gun on a very small maneuverable platform. And it's almost like the Walker Bulldog runs into the issue of being one shot a lot. The Chaffee, usually you take a hit or two, just because the guns of this tier don't do a whole lot. But, well, I say do a lot, but usually they don't one-shot you. And right there, I took a hit from the side over there. That got my radiator and disabled my horizontal drive, which, you know, is unfortunate. But I'm gonna have to sit here and repair. And this AI sitting in front of me, I wanted to try and shoot him, get in position to shoot him first, but I was a little impatient and I didn't. Horizontal drive is still busted. Gonna call some artillery, and I'm taking random hits here. But my front plate is angled, so the guys out there who are shooting at me is not really doing anything to me. Now I'm repaired. I can back up, reposition, and start defending this cap, because the Panzer IIC behind me is already lit up, so he'll die. There's a Panzer IIIJ over there. Put a hit into him, but it didn't hit exactly where I wanted, so it didn't knock him out. He just is going to back up behind that hill. And we get a kill assist. Woohoo! But now we're capturing A, so I want to sit in here and cap A, and then push around this corner and try and clean up the enemy. Basically make it so that they can't continue to push on the cap, make it so they have to worry about coming out of their spawn instead. Nice hit there, right into a 3M, set him on fire. Just kind of poke out again, give him another one. He's on fire. He's pretty much toast. I'm not exactly sure at this point how much of his tank is damaged, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to be able to return fire, and now he's dead, which is nice. But I am kind of damaged. I actually take a hit there from the artillery. Or no, it was a 3L, but I think it was the artillery shell that actually got me. So I'm all ready to fire now, so I'm kind of looking around for him, but he's not here. Nope, nope, there was a stug right there, though. Get wrecked. That's something I like about the Chaffee, is that the gun is pretty effective. It's a 75mm gun, and it gets the AP round that is just really, really potent at this tier. So it's almost like you take a Sherman and put the gun on a smaller, lighter platform and take away a little bit of the armor, and that's what what the Chaffee is. And I see why people really like the Chaffee. I personally, you know what, the Chaffee is interesting to drive because its armor isn't good, but it's at a tier where not many people have good armor. Whereas like the Walker Bulldog's at a tier where there are tanks with very good armor. You know, mainly like, you know, Tiger 2s and things like that. Oh, and there's that Martyr still. Gonna keep shooting him. It sucks that my rate of fire's been cut in half, though. That would have been nice to have been pumping out shells really, really quickly here. But another assist on the Martyr. Gonna keep looking around. There is someone over there I would love to get a shot at. Oh, casual. Very casual. Set the J1 on fire. Back up so he can't shoot me anymore. Now something the Chaffee really does well is that it moves forward and in reverse and forward very quickly. So a lot of times if you can jump out, take a shot, and then jump back fairly quickly. Which means that if they're not ready for you by the time their turret's swung around, they may not be able to put a shot into you or even fire a return shot. So that's really nice. What the better thing to do here would have been is to, oh, there he goes, another assist. Would have been to kind of reposition, since I'm taking so long to reload anyway. Probably would have been better to move to a different position and fire from there. And basically assure that his turret's not going to be facing me. But it wasn't necessary. He got knocked out. I don't think he was in a position to return fire anyway. Now we're going to move forward a little bit. And it sucks that my transmission's damaged and my gun and my loader's probably wounded, because nothing's really happening fast on this tank, but yeah, we're moving along fairly well. Oop, 3L. First shot goes in and sprays his crew, which is really nice. But I can't really push the issue on him because my rate of fire isn't nearly good enough. If my rate of fire wasn't diminished, I probably would have kept going and got around there and put a shell into him. Probably finished him off. But I'm gonna have to wait. And also, if my transmission wasn't kind of busted up, I probably would have gone up and around the corner anyway, even if I wasn't reloaded, to just try and get around on his side really quickly. But he's going to be waiting just over here. Also, the Chaffee's a pretty small machine, so he can fit through some very small gaps. He's just going to be right around over here. And put one through his front plate, spray the rest of his crew, and he's done. Now, there is an enemy who's spotted way down over here, and you can actually see him fire right there. And, you know, this is a tough shot, especially since I'm not firing very fast. But he's kind of gone outside the map, and then we nailed him right in the side of the turret, but he's kind of gone outside the map and then sat up on a ridge to shoot at people. Which, I guess I really don't like the fact that you can do that, but I guess at some point jungle might be a larger map. I don't know. But it is sometimes annoying when people are sitting off the map in positions that they probably shouldn't be able to get to and shooting at people. It's especially annoying on Cuban when you can actually get off of the mini-map and then still be able to shoot at people. So, like in realistic battle, you know, the mini-map is a tool, and you know, they may not be spotted and you can't see them on the mini-map, and also in simulator battle. But I guess you could argue that in simulator battle, having the mini-map may be a crutch, and we shouldn't have it. But in the current game mode, it's very annoying. But we've capped, and we're going to win pretty handily here. But I'm trying to find this guy, because he's running around back here. He actually just got set on fire. Or was that a J1 or no? But he might be the last guy alive. So I'm looking for him. I know he's over here somewhere, and he's still not knocked out. He's over here, and oh, there he goes. Someone got him. That's the thing, is that usually if you go to these positions, I think you get to them too late, and by the time you're there, it's extremely difficult to affect the outcome of the game, especially on a cap, you know, game mode, because you can't defend the cap really. You can't get there or do anything, which is actually why I think it's really annoying with people. That's another reason why it annoys when people come to positions like this that are sort of outside of the map. Is that on most of the game, you know, a lot of the times you play on a capture game mode, you know, conquest or domination, and from there you really can't do anything to affect the cap. You're not near a cap zone. You know, if we start capping A, excuse me, the only thing you can do is shoot at it, and you're really far away. So even then, that might not be like conducive to winning the game. But we're gonna win this one, and yeah, Chaffee performed pretty well. It sucks that early on I tried to be. I think I wasn't fast enough to get up there, and actually I shouldn't have even gone that way. I should have gone up the side that faces our spawn rather than up and around, because that opens me up to being hit. If I'd gone up and over, then I probably wouldn't have gotten hit. But those are the type of routes you need to learn when you're in the Chaffee to maximize speed and, you know, getting to where you want to go as quick as possible. So let's move on to the next replay, shall we? So here we are in the Chaffee again, on a realistic battle in, well, I always do that. I always say on a realistic battle in a map. No, it's on White Rock Fortress in a realistic battle. There you go. And I've decided I don't really want to go towards the cap. I would be the perfect tank to go towards the cap. I'm fast, small, I'm agile, powerful gun. You know, fighting over there isn't a bad idea. However, it just doesn't appeal to me in this game. I'd much rather fight around these hills, use the ditches, and kind of get under their guns and sweep around. That would be better, I think. So, and because it's so much closer to our spawn, you know, bad placement of the cap, but other people are going to get there in time anyway. It's not like I need to do that to win. No, I can do basically anything I want, and we're likely to win here. But I'm going to blitz across this field here and get over here into the more hilly section, about halfway between their spawn and our spawn. And I do think this section of the map is fairly important, because if you have tanks sort of nestled in here, it's very difficult for them to move across the field to the cap, no matter where it is. And sometimes you can win a game by slowing them down or preventing them from moving easily from their spawn to the castle. I'm just going to hang out over here and just keep looping shots over there into them as they cross the plane. They do have some dangerous tanks though, so I will need to watch out for that. F2s are very dangerous for the Chaffee because it is a large caliber round, a 75. At this tier at least, that'll really cause some pain. Just going to line up some shots here. I can't tell if that, I'm trying to like sort of loop it over the hill, so it's not abundantly clear if that was short or long. Oh, but we're taking artillery fire. There's a guy over there in 3L. He missed his shot. Fire mine. Or it's a F1, sorry. My shot doesn't really do anything to him. That was also on like the seam of his armor, and that's going to be a tough spot to penetrate. Martyr, first shell goes in. Doesn't do a lot of damage. But this is what the Chaffee's really good at, is harassing people. Just being really, really annoying. It's fast, it has a very punchy gun, and if you leave it alone, it will kill your entire team, no problem. But it is tremendously annoying that this Martyr is not sitting still for me. I just took a hit, I believe, from the F1 that got my gunner. So I'm going to back up, I'm going to stop looking, well, what I should have done, what I didn't do, is back up. It's actually an E, okay, 4E. What I should have done is backed up and started engaging different targets. And I think I might do that right now, because that guy's become too tough of a shot really to get. And there's a Stug who's creeping over there. First shot goes in, sets him on fire. But it looks like he's going to be able to drop down and get out of there. Now they have called Artie on either my position or position near me. So I'm going to need to move a little bit here. There's a Martyr 3 over there. I'm going to be shooting at him a lot. Because I'm fulfilling my role as like an annoying yappy dog here. Which is kind of the Chaffee's job to some degree, is that if you leave it alone, it will kill your entire team. But if you devote a lot of resources to it, I feel like other tanks are going to take advantage of that. For example, Shermans. If you focus on killing Chaffees, Shermans are going to run a train on you. Whereas if you focus on killing the Shermans and you leave a couple Chaffees alive, it's not going to be good. They're going to get on your flanks and they're going to get behind you and really cause some issues. But I'm just kind of poking around over here. This 3J1 really needs to die because, or is it N? I can't read. It's an N. Oh, but he's coming over. My first shot goes in and it looks like it got his gunner and a couple other things. He got my driver, but I'm going to reload and send another shell in, which didn't kill him off. But I'm also going to get the next shell off. He's backing up down the hill, loop it over, penetrate his front plate, and wipe out the rest of his crew. So I did get lucky there, but the Chaffee's armor, when angled like this, and people shoot your front plate, it's not that bad, right? It's not good, but it's not that bad. And you can actually get away with being hit like that and not being knocked out. You know, it's interesting because it doesn't have a lot of armor, but it has enough armor where sometimes it can actually save you and help you knock out an enemy tank. But you know, I've had enough time shooting from that position. Now I'm going to come back to my previous position and try and do some cleanup over here. But I also want to move forward because the battle is advancing. And gonna fire a shell, that went low. But I want to get forward and drop it in this ditch. And this ditch here is actually a very good position because it allows you to move laterally across this field without the fear of being killed. So I'm going to drop down inside of it, and now I can engage targets much more safely. Because I can basically use this where I only show my turret, and I can use my forward and reverse gears to kind of move back and forth to cover get behind the hill and to move out of the hill, which means I'll do it very quickly rather than, you know, having to turn the tank or anything. But there's a, whatever that is, I think it's an F1. I can't quite see the name, but there's a martyr who's popped out. And a martyr from the side, I'll definitely shoot that, set him on fire. But this is what I mean, I can back up fairly quickly, so I can actually keep my hull concealed and only show my turret to, well, this guy who's not even looking at me, but if he was looking at me, he would only be able to shoot my turret, which is a much harder shot. But, oh, there we go, no problem. And now there's a Stug 3F over there. Maybe that's the guy I was thinking of before that I couldn't read his name. But there is also an F2 who has shown up to party. Nope, and he's looking at me, so I'm going to back up, cover as much of my hull as possible, and, you know, I'm moving, so I'm a more difficult target, and I send the shell in and knocks him right out. So, that's pretty good. And like I said in the beginning, we've capped, bomber, suicide run. We've capped, we're going to win, but that's kind of what the Chaffee's pretty good at. It's harassing. You can certainly kill tanks, and you will kill a lot of tanks in this machine, but it's very good at harassing and drawing attention and really just being a thorn in the enemy side. It's less so about the frontal engagements like Sherman's more so are. Sherman's kind of fill that role for the Americans as being up close and personal. Especially at this tier, whereas the Chaffee is the flanking, you know, light tank that gets out there and causes issues from the flanks. You don't want to be leading the charge in a Chaffee. You want to be, you don't want to, and you can be on the front line, but be on the front line off to the sides. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be dead center leading the charge, point of the spear. Be, you know, maybe a couple tanks behind that. You know, don't use your speed to just go die, you know. Use your speed to, you have to intelligently use your speed to get on the flanks and cause issues, rather than just go and die. So, let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? Alright, so opinion time. What do I think of the M24 Chaffee? The M24 Chaffee, I think, is my favorite sort of light tank in the game, mainly because it's at a tier where, even though it's a light tank and it doesn't have great armor, its armor is actually not horrible. Right, it's not much removed from the German tanks of the same tier. All right, and you can actually get bounces and things like that with German tank armor. Now, and then the gun, you combine it with, you know, basically what amounts to a Sherman's gun with a lower rate of fire. At least, I don't know how much of that is crew difference, but as far as I can tell, it has a lower rate of fire. And when you combine the speed of this thing with, you know, serviceable, quote-unquote, armor and a really good gun, I feel like that that really makes a potent package for your team. Now, that doesn't mean you should use your speed to just blitz out there and be the first one spotted, first one to get hit. That's just not what this tank does well. What this tank does well is to be on the edge or unexpected and sort of lay into enemies that you weren't their first target, right? Like, historically, this tank didn't do well when it was the frontline tank because it's not equipped really for that. Other tanks are better suited for that. This tank is a great support tank where, you know, let's say there's a Sherman who's, you know, facing a couple German tanks and you're off on the edge and like behind a rock, you can pop out, shoot one of those tanks, pop back very quickly before they turn their guns on you, and and you're helping that Sherman deal with them. So that's your job. Your job is to be an annoying, yapping, you know, dog that's just going to bite your heels all day long and eventually bring you down because you're just taking so many hits, or, you know, just knock him out in one blow because this gun is very powerful. So, yeah. that's my opinion of the Chaffee. I think it's really fun. I think most people who play it agree it's a very fun tank. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to put them in the comments section. I'll be more than happy to read them and answer them. And yeah, that'll be it for this review. So thanks for watching. I've been CornySwiss. I'll see you next time.